Dozens of young men line up in front of a small rustic shelter. Apparently they are volunteers, other than one, a 10-year-old boy who was volunteered by his family. Laying on the ground in front of the volunteers is an assortment of thin metal rods known as veils. They range between 10 inches and probably around 12 feet. The young lad steps up to the veils. A holy man picks up the shortest one and places one end against his cheek. The women on the ridge behind us raise a deafening high-pitched warbling cry as the veil is pushed clean through the flesh and into the boy's mouth. The rest of the holy men shout and scream at the top of their voices as the veil is pushed through the mouth and out through the other cheek. Apparently, this is all to distract him from the pain of the procedure. He appears to take it quite well, considering, but personally, I can't see this form of anaesthetic taking off. To Fly Like a Bird by Phil Wingfield. The protagonists in this tale are myself and Keith Harris. Kovalam, 4th of March 2000. The Kerala coast is beautiful. An endless sequence of golden palm-fringed beaches interspersed with rocky promontories. A perfect location for some downtime, a bit of R&R at the end of a hectic trip. This particular sequence of golden palm-fringed beaches and rocky promontories is called Kovalam. It has beach bars, cafes, and somewhere around, we think, people. It's idyllic, relaxing, calm, quiet, and boring. God, I'm so bored. R&R, what were we thinking? The sound of the waves masked completely the sound of our approaching salvation, until it was right on top of us and proffering an A5 leaflet. Our saviour was a representative from Elite Travels and Tours. The leaflet advertised a trip to the Chenkal Sivasakthi Temple Festival. Normally, we would pour scorn on the organised trip and reject it out of hand. But not today. Oh, thank God. Thank God for that. Thank you. Thank you, Elite Travels and Tours. Bring on the Chenkal Sivasakthi Temple Festival. According to the leaflet, the Chenkal Sivasakthi Temple Festival promises such delights as a procession of elephants, traditional dancing, and a procession with oil lamps. Though I'm sure they mean lamps. I hope they mean lamps. And on top of the oil lamps, or lamps, there will be Agni Kavadi and Parava Kavadi. Oh, wow. So what are they then? Agni Kavadi, apparently, is fire walking, and Parava Kavadi translates roughly into fly like a bird. Intriguing. That very afternoon we set off in the Elite Travels and Tours company jeep, and an old Hindustan ambassador they scrounged up or stole, as the jeep was too small for the tour group they had amassed. It soon becomes clear that Elite Tours and Travels aren't totally sure where they're going. The drivers keep stopping to confer and can agree on only one thing. Neither of them knows where Chenkal is. They ask several people for directions, and judging by the number of U-turns, none of them know either. The Chenkal Sivasakthi Temple Festival trip looks like turning into a palm-fringed backroads of Kerala tour. We seem to have spent an uncomfortably long time driving through these palms, passing no turnings and seeing no signs, when I notice that the road is now lined on both sides by palm leaves tied into a decorative knot. Finally, something that says festival. Or either that or Children of the Corn. Following the leaves leads us into Chenkal, and the jeep drops us next to the temple before driving off. So, travels and tours, but no guide. Somehow, I was expecting the temple of this temple festival to be something ancient, a time-worn Gopuram straight out of Indiana Jones, adorned with archaic carvings of monstrous gods, but it's very modern and a bit bland, to be honest. An enormous fire blazes nearby. Flames leap and smoke billows as it is stoked over-dramatically by a temple priest sporting a massive beard. He rams a long pole into the flames, sending up showers of embers in an attempt to make more of what is just a big bonfire. Maybe his beard will catch. That will make it interesting. There's a lot of noise and music coming from a large crowd amassed a few hundred yards from the temple. It sounds a lot more interesting than staring at this bonfire, though there are a fair few people who don't agree. Or maybe they are just waiting for the beard to go up. Walking towards the noise, we pass the procession elephants, resplendent in their golden faceplates and ornate howdahs, standing by the roadside, munching on copious amounts of vegetation. They make for an impressive sight. It's a pity there are only 5 of them. The density of festival attendees steadily increases until we reach the edge of a large crowd whose attention is on a lake partially hidden by some trees, and there is some activity on the shore. Lined up along a raised embankment facing the water are hundreds of spectators. They are all female. They are mostly adults, but there are a few young girls amongst them. The youngsters are heavily made up. 2 traditional Kerala Panchavajam or orchestras play amongst the crowds. Half a dozen men on drums, cymbals, bells, and the kuzal. The kuzal is a woodwind instrument resembling an oversized clarinet. All the players are very enthusiastic and look to be having a great time. The percussion keeps a regular beat going, while the kuzal play random high-pitched screechy notes in no particular order, or tune as we like to call it. Down by the water, dozens of young men line up in front of a small rustic shelter. Apparently they are volunteers, other than one, a 10-year-old boy who was volunteered by his family. Laying on the ground in front of the volunteers is an assortment of thin metal rods known as veils. They range between 10 inches and probably around 12 feet. Overseeing the proceedings is a gaggle of scantily clad holy men. The young lad, the one who was volunteered, steps up to the veils. A holy man picks up the shortest one and places one end against his cheek. The women on the ridge behind us raise a deafening high-pitched warbling cry as the veil is pushed clean through the flesh and into the boy's mouth. The rest of the holy men shout and scream at the top of their voices as the veil is pushed through the mouth and out through the other cheek. Apparently, this is all to distract him from the pain of the procedure. He appears to take it quite well, considering, but personally, I can't see this form of anaesthetic taking off. So, youngest first then. Funny how seniority goes right out the window when it comes to having a skewer stuck through your face. It is said that the strength to endure this ritual piercing is gained through 41 days of prayer to Shiva, a strict vegetarian diet, and abstinence from alcohol. I should hope that the latter was not a problem for the 10-year-old. Well, not right now anyway. But in years to come, his efforts to eradicate the memory of being volunteered for a ritual face stabbing may well make him an alcoholic. One by one, the volunteers step up. Despite the weeks of preparation, devotion to Shiva, and the distracting cacophony, it was clear that some of the devotees were feeling every inch of the veils as they went through. The final 2 volunteers are spared the javelin through the face. Their veils are short and capped at each end with something that resembles a small spade and a Shiva trident. However, to maintain the universal balance, they have vicious-looking metal hooks pushed through the skin of their backs and legs. They look like very thick meat skewers bent into an unequal V. The shorter, sharpened arm goes through the skin, and the longer arm is bent around on itself to form a closed ring. One of the pair has 2 of these skewers in his lower back. The other has the same, plus 2 more through the flesh under each shoulder blade, and 1 through the back of each thigh. Once all the metalwork is in place, everyone goes down to the water to receive blessing, accompanied by more shrieking. The pierced devotees then form a procession and head back towards the temple, surrounded by a thick knot of people. The guys with the meat-hook body art stop next to a flatbed truck, adorned with palm leaves, garlands of marigolds, bunches of bananas, coconuts, and various other plants, fruit and produce I don't recognise. Come to think of it, engulfed may be a more accurate description than adorned. This is like a cross between a Hindu festival and a harvest festival. Protruding over the truck's cab is a sturdy wooden pole, with 3 cross pieces maybe 18 inches apart towards the front end. The addition of this pole gives the Hindu harvest festival a little touch of Mad Max. A human barrier 2 or 3 deep forms around the truck and the hookers. The innermost people join hands to form an unbroken circle. A small group of holy men push their way through to the truck. Something's happening, but we're on the outside of the circle. A man from a TV company sporting a massive camera is admitted to the inner circle. When he sees me straining for a view, he reaches through the crowd and pulls me in too. Most unexpected, not to mention brilliant. Having brought me into the circle, the cameraman returns his attention to the task at hand. Everyone else just ignores me and carries on as before. I seem to have an invisible backstage pass. A roughly 6-foot-tall wooden shrine mounted on small rubber-rimmed wheels parts the human barricade and comes to rest behind Mr. Two Hooks. The shrine, or chariot, consists of a sturdy base and a dozen turned ebony rods supporting the ornate tiered cap. The rods form a sort of cage containing a golden Shiva idol. One of the holy men produces a long strip of linen and loops it around the base of the chariot before tying the ends to the hooks. The chariot looks weighty, the wheels small, and the road surface far from ideal. This guy might have dodged a spear through the face, but I'm not sure he's up on the deal. In other news, one of the holy men gives Johnny Six Hooks a drink of water and has him lie face down on a table underneath the pole. It doesn't take too much to connect the dots here. 6 hooks, 3 similarly spaced cross pieces on that pole. 3 lengths of rope are painstakingly threaded through the hooks and looped around the pole above, loosely at first. With the ropes in place, 4 men lift the guy off the table and hold him at shoulder height, while another 2 take up the slack and secure the ropes to the pole. By the look on Johnny Six Hooks' face, prayer to Shiva, alcohol-free lager and veggie burgers have not paid the expected dividends. It hurts, and it shows. So what do we have here now? Mad Max's Harvest Hindu Festival, now with added Spartacus and a side of Clive Barker. With all the ropes secure, the 4 men lower Johnny down slowly until his skin takes up the tension. Then he hangs there, in mid-air, on 6 little circus tents of flesh attached to homemade hooks. And there you have it, Paravakavadi, to fly like a bird. What some people will do in the name of religion is plain bonkers to me. But you can't knock devotion like this. The pierced devotees with Johnny at the head, the warbling women, the orchestras and the elephants form into the promised festival procession. But as yet, no sign of the lambs. The body-piercing crew bring up the rear, which I thought was a bit harsh. I would have thought sacrifices such as theirs deserve better, and I wonder if they sold this gig to Johnny by promising him pole position. Yeah, you should have read the small print, mate. Pun, very much intended, by the way. Adding insult to injury, the procession doesn't move off for ages. I feel for the guy. There's nothing worse than being kept hanging around. Eventually, the procession moves off, slowly, and we walk with it. By the time we get to the temple, we have outpaced the thing and reached the front. The old bonfire is still raging and still tended with the same enthusiasm by the same guy, beard intact. The procession carries on, but we decide to bag the front row for Agnikavadi, or firewalking. When Johnny and the crew pass by, we note that Two Hooks has already had enough. He's holding the linen strips in his hands and dragging the chariot behind him. Cheating has cut out the pain factor, but doesn't look to have made it any easier. Bringing up the rear of the rear is a dubious honour reserved for the 10-year-old. First in line for the aerated gob, then stuck right at the back of the procession. I think he should be up there with Johnny Six Hooks. At the very least, he should be in front of the cheating charioteer. We wait for quite some time. As hard as it is to believe, watching a fire being stoked is not the most exciting of pastimes, and we are in danger of becoming flame retarded. Then, out of nowhere, Mr. Elite Tours appears. We've not seen him since he abandoned us here, however long ago that was. But he's not just checking on us. Apparently, it's time to go. What? What about the Agnikavadi? What about the firewalking? We haven't watched this damn fire stoking for an hour only to miss the highlight. But, it would seem, we have done exactly that. The rest of the tour group want to return to Gavalam. Wimps. We consider staying on and making our own way back, but finding this berg was challenge enough. Getting someone to take us back to Gavalam after a major religious festival is probably a non-starter. No one is going to want to leave the party. and the chances are that anyone willing to drive us back at 2 a.m. should not be allowed to do so. So, no Agnica Valley for us then. Damn bloody lightweights. It is dark as we leave, and the roads are lined with hundreds of neon tubes and coloured lights flashing at random as far as the eye can see. Our little two-vehicle convoy manages a few hundred metres before getting caught in traffic. We can hear the discordant sound of the orchestras. The returning procession, wherever they went, is causing chaos. Dozens of youths, whom I suspect are not teetotal, or at least not anymore, dance along the road with the body-piercing crew, their veils flexing as they walk. I can see some accidental impaling on the horizon. Back in Cavalum, we head to the beach restaurants for sustenance. A woman I recognise from the jeep stops for a chat. I resist the urge to haul her over the coals for making us miss the Agnica Valley. She tells us that she has worked in London clubs where the kind of body piercing we saw today goes on every night. Well, I'm sure it does. But there's a big difference between doing it for money and doing it for your God. The people at the club will get paid, handsomely I imagine, for a few short stints on the hook. Johnny and co. are out there still, trundling around Chenkal, 8 hours and counting. For them, the ordeal and the payment are one and the same. Postscript. When we visited Chenkal, it was a virtual unknown, absent from the guides and nowhere to be found on the fledgling internet. These days, not a great deal has changed, and the Chenkal Sivasakthi Temple Festival may be Kerala's best kept secret. If you Google Chenkal Sivasakthi Temple Festival, there is still little detail to be found. The search results in articles and images of festivals, temples and elephants, etc., but very few, if any, are actually in Chenkal. The one result you'll always get when searching for Chenkal is the fact that the temple now has, at 111 feet, India's tallest Shiva Lingam. Or as I prefer to say, India's biggest cock. To Fly Like a Bird was written and read by Phil Wingfield.